Good afternoon, competitors. Coach Ed Haynes here to talk about the strength conditioning program for the competitors group. Just a little precursor, we are changing this up a little bit. Rather than going through our general introductions of the competitors group, who it's for, what we're doing and why we're doing it, we're just going to get straight into talking about your current training cycle. I'm going to create a separate video for that, which will kind of be like a mainstay that we can always refer back to, which will discuss the kind of the who's, the what's, the how's and the why's of the competitors training group. The reason being is you just want to kind of be a bit more concise with our content here, and rather than dragging out for 20-30 minutes, let's get straight into what you're doing and why you're doing it. So the first thing to kind of introduce is that, remember, we do have movement prep work that is programmed every day, and the movement prep work is specific to the training stimulus of that day. So for example, on a Wednesday when we're going to snatch, we're going to be doing some shoulder and squat specific work to help open up our snatch. So for those of you who do have the luxury or the flexibility or the ability to come into a gym a little bit earlier before class or before you're in training time to do some specific movement prep work, if you are unsure of what you should be doing relative to the training session ahead, that is there for you as a guide to refer to. That is pulling on lots of different disciplines, from kind of FRC to loaded movement to joint articular rotations, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you find something useful there. Obviously, as a competitive group, you technically are the most in tune and self-aware athletes within all of our training groups. So hopefully you can still pick out some pieces that are beneficial to you. By no means don't feel that you have to abide to it. Kind of take a shotgun approach and just pick out pieces that work for you. So getting into our training week now, guys. Mondays we're going to be going back to some isolated clean and jerk absolute strength work. We've been doing a lot of fatigue based cleaning and snatching recently in the last training block, and that was very specific, and there was a reason for that, which is to expose you guys to perhaps sport specific barbell cycling that you might see in things like local comps and throwdowns or the open, where you're having to lift moderate to high intensity loads in a fatigue based setting. With that said, I'm very happy with where the group finished in week 8 there, so we're going to go back to just isolating the movements again and getting strong with the clean, jerk and snatch. Mondays we'll be doing some single leg absolute strength endurance work. We'll be finishing with some mixed modal aerobic conditioning, and your accessory work on a Monday is going to be really related to the midline and the trunk, and just kind of having some accessory or support work in there. Tuesdays, based upon some feedback that we had from a lot of our in-house competitors group, was that our shoulders were starting to feel a little bit beat up by the end of the last phase, so we've deliberately taken out overhead movements on a Tuesday. With that said, overhead pressing movements. We will be doing a lot of overhead pulling work, but specifically the idea is to load the shoulders a little bit more on a Monday, give it a break on a Tuesday, and load them again on a Wednesday when we snatch. So speaking about your Tuesdays, we've been doing a lot of muscle up development work for the last 12 weeks now. Really happy with the average ability level, both male and female, within the muscle up across the board for our competitors group. So we're actually going to kind of dial it back a bit this phase and get after some strict pulling and pushing absolute strength. The idea being that we've worked a lot on isolating the technique and the skill of the muscle up. Now if we can go back and get a little bit stronger through those movement patterns, when we get back into our next muscle up phase or putting muscle ups into fatigue based setting, we'll be able to express more strength, and that will be expressed in linking more repetitions together, having more capacity to do more work in a shorter amount of time. There will still be touches on the muscle up within your program, and we might even be giving people the option to either hit muscle ups or chest to bars based on what they're thinking is most appropriate for that day, or based on how they feel, or what is most appropriate in terms of what they need. So that will be kind of down for you guys to choose what's most appropriate. Just with regards to a few conversations I've been having with regards to kipping work, with regards specifically to the butterfly versus the gymnastics kip, it's completely down to you guys. Remember that the more training age, the longer you've been involved in the sport, means that the more we can start to get after more advanced variations of movements. So naturally, we do know there's a lot of benefits of the butterfly pull-up, like increased cycle time and essentially less work per repetition. So it might be something you might want to explore. How you should explore that is self-exploration first. Watch YouTube videos, follow people online who are putting out free educational content. Try to work out yourselves how you can master or at least learn the basics of the movement yourselves. Always reach out to one of the coaching team. We'd be more than happy to help. But we also have functional gymnastics in-house, which will be addressing those kind of movements as well. Our Tuesday accessory work will just be general upper body accessory work to keep our shoulders, wrists, trunk all healthy and making sure we're getting touches on movement patterns that perhaps we don't see so much in a regular CrossFit program. Wednesdays, we're going to continue to hit the snatch and developing some absolute speed strength there, but we'll also be getting some touches on some cycling work as well, so we are still kind of being a bit sport specific. We'll be deadlifting on a Wednesday, but we're going to keep our deadlifting variations fairly varied. We're doing things like sumo stance work, deficit work, perhaps trap bar work, but basically moving a little bit away from touch and go work, which we did a lot of in the last training block. We'll also be doing some handstand push-up work on a Wednesday, which we don't typically do on a Wednesday, but again, it's to stack more overhead work on the same day with rest days in between. We'll be doing some threshold testers on Wednesday, so kind of high relative intensity work with moderate to longer rest periods so we can work close to that red line. And we'll be doing some strict handstand push-up accessory work on a Wednesday, as well as some kind of lower body single leg knee flexion and posterior chain work on a Wednesday. Thursday, as you know, is our rest day. Fridays, we're going to be driving up front squat absolute strength. So when we talk about squatting strength within the sport of CrossFit, the two patterns we see tested much more often are the front squat and the overhead squat. The movement pattern we see probably tested the least in the sport is back squatting. So what you'll notice is that we get closer to the training season or the competitive season, and we'll start to really ramp things up in about November time, you're going to start to see probably less back squatting or just maintenance of our back squat strength, more front squatting, more overhead squatting. So just to kind of lay that out there in case you're wondering why. We'll be doing some gymnastics development work on a Friday, and then we'll always be finished with the sport-specific testo. So anywhere between kind of 4 to 8 minutes of short, high relative intensity work. This might be a great time to think about kind of racing others or racing yourself. It's important that we do have those kind of those workouts which do require you to compete. It's a skill it's a skill in itself. Saturdays, we're going to stay with the theme that we've been focusing on the last few training blocks, which is going to be predominantly aerobic day. It's a great day to kind of use as a filler to get touches on movements or energy systems that we haven't perhaps touched on within the week. So expect to see a varied format there, rounds for time, AMRAPs, long pieces, moderate pieces, pieces with light loads, moderate loads, heavy loads, unloaded movements. You might see partner workouts. I mean, we're going to keep that nice and open. The idea is just to have fun and to breathe and still get some sport-specific touches on there. One thing I would say that as a group we probably need to get better at is the skill of handstand walking. It's unfortunately just one of those skills where you kind of need to throw yourself at it head first. Follow the progressions that we've been giving you guys in terms of getting comfortable being on your hands and kind of shifting weight from right to left. But there's gonna come a time where you're gonna have to just start walking, unfortunately. And when we know that when we start to walk, we're probably gonna fall, but to not be scared or apprehensive of that, because we always learn from our failures. So it definitely is a skill that we need to work on as an entire group. So please, I know you see it more as accessory work, but don't ignore the importance of it, because we probably know that it's going to be a skill that's going to come up in future CrossFit Opens from now on. All right, guys, that's it from me. Thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication and for tuning into this video. Hopefully you found it informative. If you do have any questions, please write into myself or the rest of the coaching team or our operations team here at Coastal Fitness Performance Training. We are also going to be getting out a weekly video, which is kind of be like a YouTube podcast, where myself and some of the other coaching team will be talking about a whole host of different subjects. But if you guys have subjects you'd like us to cover and talk about, we'd love to have those questions sent through to us and we can address them in those videos. Thank you very much, guys, and keep up the hard work.